Hey, what do guys? So I'm coming at you with yet another Maverick video, making videos really controversial, kinda. And yeah, I know, yes, I know I was gonna do a review, but I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about. And I've been procrastinating. So yeah, I'm gonna just pretty much talk about what I talked about last time with the SJW Warriors. And so pretty much I kind of wanted to talk about, well, how did we get here? What's the state of things? And kind of like moving forward, what do we do with that? Like what is some ideas how to move forward from here? So yeah, with that, let's get into it. Okay, so in my last video, I was talking about, again, like the SJW Warriors and how stupid it is, like not even just with like the idea of it, but like the fact that their powers and names are really stupid. Like you have Safe Space and Snowflake, like really on the nose, and their powers are dumb, and then it just like why the hell are you doing this, right? And so Clownfish TV has been doing a lot of on the going and updates with this story and everything, and also bringing in the like X-Men too. Like if you haven't heard about that too, you have Children of the Atom, and then so pretty much you have gender bending, gender switching of like the X-Men characters. So you have a female Cyclops, you have a female Black Gambit, and they're sidekicks apparently, because you have a school of full of mutants, and then your sidekicks are your doppelgangers, just the opposite gender maybe. Like why would you have a second Cyclops? Like if you have a whole mansion of mutants, right? And so you're gonna pick someone who has the exact same powers as you. It's really dumb. So anyway, so go ahead, check out Clownfish TV, because they also go into talking about the writer for the New Warriors, the SJW New Warriors, Daniel Kibblesmith, and apparently he's a millionaire. And you know, when it comes to going woke, going broke, he's not gonna go broke because he's a millionaire, and he's gonna insert his SJW politics into everything. And that's great, because that's how elitists and journalists work, because they just have co-opted the whole industry, right? And so surprise there, right?
So we've got a straight white cis male millionaire, probably the pinnacle of what people would call privilege,
right?
And he's writing stuff like this, and he's writing stuff like this.
Well, you know, to be fair, we've said before that, you know, this whole idea of pigeonholing people that they only can write certain characters like that is ridiculous. We have said that.
Right.
That being said, we met people that can competently write people that are different than them.
So just like Daniel Kibblesmith, you have people who are inserting their SJW stuff, not just within the comic books, but it's all over to Hollywood and the media and everything. So you're having SJW like Doctor Who and obviously going into some of the Marvel stuff in the MCU, and then obviously into Star Wars as well. So now pretty much, I mean, comic books and media in general has always talked about like social in the environment and the culture of everything that was going on. And so Thorskywalker does a really good rundown as far as the timeline of the comic books and how it changes throughout the times, right? You know, like whereas in the World War II, like Captain America was fighting the Nazis, and then going into the 60s, 70s, X-Men was talking about the civil rights, and then going into the 80s, you have like anti-heroes and talking about like the Dark Knight Rises and all that stuff, and making darker tones, and essentially you're doing these, talking about the current times and everything, because yeah, I mean, like you're gonna write about what is going on and have it relate to the people who is living in the current times, right? And so that totally makes sense, right?
But first, let's look at and realize that yes, comic books over the course of their existence have almost always been social commentaries. When we go back and look at the first two superheroes, Batman and Superman, who came about towards the late 30s, well, both of them were very much a reflection of that time and dealt with problems or issues that the common person faced. Superman was an allegory for an immigrant who adapted to the new world that he'd come to. And in the early days, Superman took on corruption, not supervillains. And do keep in mind this was during the Great Depression. This was when FDR's New Deal was trying to save us all with countless public works programs.
But now I think it is the left that's been injected themselves into, like, again, like I was saying, like Marvel and Star Wars and the comic book industry and everything. And so like you obviously you have these writers who are just spouting their ideology, and that in a way that's fine, but I feel like it is obviously there's the backlash, right? And I like to refer to Tim Pool in which he likes to say, like, if you want to make broccoli ice cream, you're more than welcome to, but once you find out it's not selling, maybe you should reevaluate yourself. And I bring that point up just because these writers think that these are the themes that people want to listen to. Like, Marvel put out the video for the X-Men, the Children of Atom, and then the writer for it is, like, again, very SJW, and then she's like, Zoomers are gonna like this because they have, like, social media accounts and a Twitter and a TikTok, and, like, these are not what people want.
X-Men is supposed to be something that is, you know, important to the now, and so what is more now than Zoomers?
Anything you want to know about these characters, Vita has thought about it already.
One of them has a TikTok, one of them has a fitness Insta, one of them is basically the moderator for the mutant subreddit, one of them is a cosplayer, and the other one makes mutant music. For so long, it's like the larger media in the X-Men universe is like, mutants are bad, and like the X-Men are evil because they're mutants and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what would Zoomers think of that? They would be like, no, they're great. Like.
So again, like, how we got here and where this thing is going, I mean, like I said, like, there's a timeline of comic books just referring and talking about what things are going social, politically, and culturally in the world, right? And, you know, people, like I said, you have these writers like Daniel Kimball Smith that are thinking this is what people want, when in reality they're stuck in a bubble and just writing within themselves and like, oh, this is what we think people would like. And to that point, pretty much, I think that's the opposite. Gen Z is leaning more conservative than the previous other generations, whereas people like the younger generations usually start out liberal, but like there are people who are saying like Gen Z is more conservative than previous generations. And so basically you have a counter, like, being conservative is the counterculture, whereas in the 80s and 90s or whatever, you had folks on the right, the Republicans and the conservatives, being the authoritatives, right? Being the ones that, like, oh, Christian values, like all this other stuff down people's throats, and censorship on top of censorship. And so then you had the comic books and everyone else do a counterculture to that, right? Like, well, we're gonna write about what we want to talk about and in your face, right? And to that point, being conservative is today's counterculture, which leads me into the real meat of this video. Like, everything else was kind of like just to set up everything to make this point. And then obviously in the title, just make these SJW new warriors the villains, like, double down. What I'm thinking, and of course you can disagree, whatever, cool, whatever, yeah, but like, you should just double down and make them the villains. You can always go back and pretty much redeem them, right? But what an idea to make these actual villains and insert, because that's what they're doing, inserting the SJW politics into the rest of the world, right? And then you would need these other heroes to go against that. And obviously, like I said, you can twist that around and make the villains good guys again, and see what was behind it. And if you want to talk about what is like current events, I mean, the coronavirus is pretty much the news. So it would kind of be kind of cool if these SJW heroes, whatever, were all injected with internet gas or whatever, or if you want to use like the technovirus in X-Men or whatever, and so maybe they're part mutants too. And so like whatever you want to excuse it, but maybe it'd be kind of cool if they all have shared abilities or some hive mind or whatever, and then they're trying to infect other people. Like, they're like the real bad guys, maybe not intentionally, but they're the bad guys, and then unbeknownst to them or whatever. Because you have someone like Safe Space and Be Negative and Internet Boy, Screen Time. Because you can like entrap them, because what does academia do? They indoctrinate. So what if that's what they're trying to do? They try to capture people, put them in safe spaces so they can indoctrinate them. And then for Trailblazer and Snowflake, they're all about silencing the people that disagree with them. And so I think that's very fitting, you know, like they're like counterculture, they're the villains, attacking people for like having adverse thought and ideas, right? Because words are violence, and so they want to attack people who are against hate speech. So if you make them the villains, I mean, like you already have these set of characters, right? You already made time and money to make them, to create these characters. So why not actually utilize them? And then by making them villains, you're just gonna create such a buzz and actually make maybe you're gonna capture a lot of viewers because they actually want to like, okay, now you're talking that these are the actual bad guys, like, yeah, and then you're gonna have a whole group of people hating on it, but that you're counterculture. That's what you're supposed to do. And again, you can go back and dial it down and strip like snowflakes and safe spaces uniforms into something like, I wouldn't say conservative, but like better. I mean, they just look so like stereotypical, like SJW. Like, why don't they just change their names a little bit? Like I said in my last video, make them like, if safe space is something like protective, right? Like, why don't you just call it like fortitude, like something that like you're strengthening like a building, like in strengthening culture. And safe, like snowflake, is something delicate. So my like I said in my last video, it would be interesting if you rename her into unfazed, because if something snowflake is delicate, being unfazed, it should be something that, you know, like I said, like you shouldn't be unfazed with what people are saying about you. And I think that's what you can do. Obviously you can make them the bad guys and then you can change them into the good guys later. Yeah, cool. So my ending point is, you know, there are people that saying like all this SJW politics that's being injected to comic books is just gonna destroy the industry. I mean, already it's gonna be affected with the corona and all this stuff, and like comic book industry is kind of like dying a breed anyway, and people have been talking about that. But like, you know, I think maybe, just maybe, I don't know, I could be wrong, I'm just putting thoughts out there, right? And so if comic books, their main audience is the older generation, right? You know, like, whereas comics were thinking about they were for kids, and then later they became like graphic novels with like serious topics and real problems, like people with drinking problems, and they're talking about like rape and like really dark topics, and then now you're using it as an older generation, and obviously you want to target the younger generation. So if you make something for the older generation, that's cool. But here's the thing. Thorskywalker brings in this in his video, that there's a level of escapism that was in comic books, and that rings true to some degree. But nowadays I feel like we have social media and video games and the internet and all a plethora of everything for escapism, right? And I think if you use comic books as intellectual property, obviously they're trying to do it in the opposite, versus like some like thought-provoking and like good ideas rather than bad ideas, it'll be good. Because obviously if you're using the comic book industry as intellectual properties, I think it will gravitate towards the older crowd, as well as, like I said, the younger crowd. Because if the younger crowd is Gen Z, which is leaning more conservative, like academia is injected and it's an indoctrination of leftist ideology and intersectionality and everything, and if that is in the public schools as well as in college, and professors, they want to look into, I would imagine, intellectual properties and find it elsewhere. And if it's in comic books, which is fine, they just have pictures. And I think that would gravitate towards the younger generation. And I get that that's what like Daniel Kibblesmith thinks, that what's gonna be cool to the younger crowd, thinking like, ooh, yes, we want to attack the SJW because that's in. But I think they fall short into what people actually start thinking. And I bring that up because, like, you can disagree, but there's a pro-life generation, there's young kids, Gen Z, who are looking to Turning Point USA and campus reform and like MAGA, like, you can, maybe you don't like the president, that's cool, whatever. But there's a level of conservatism that is like pushing back on the SJW politics, and I think you can capitalize on that, like capitalism. And so, yeah, wrapping it up, maybe you maybe agree, you maybe disagree, let me know. Maybe, I don't know, I'm just trying to talk out loud. And some people like to think what I like my videos. And thank you to all the new subscribers and the views that I've been picking up. And I guess maybe this Corona thing is kind of cool because people don't have anything to do other than stay at home and watch YouTube videos maybe. And so yeah, please help me share my video. Please like, share, and subscribe as I'm building my channel and making more content as I'm doing these things in my room in my house. And so yeah, you can follow me on my Instagram at HeyMitchMitch. You can also follow me on my joint Instagram at It's a Mandatory Fun, where I do other videos with my friend Jen. You know, we haven't been making other videos lately, but we're gonna get on it. So again, thanks for watching. Comment below, tell me what you think. And yeah, see you in the next video. Peace, peace, peace. Be with you.
Right here with you.